Hello and welcome to another episode of the 905 podcast and the Thursday 905 Roundup, where we look at stories that are happening in our region, which some will have received attention elsewhere and some maybe haven't received enough attention. And to kick us off, Joel, there's something that certainly has had some attention in the media, and it's relating to Hamilton.
Well, yeah, this weekend, if you're a Hamiltonian resident, you no doubt heard about the I'll be polite about the kerfuffle in J.C. Beemer Park on the weekend, where protesters and police clashed over the homeless that were living in the park. Now, the details are coming out, and we're getting kind of a back and forth narrative happening here. So I don't want to get too much in the details because this thing has escalated into the SIU level. But essentially, from what we know is there's a homeless encampment in J.C. Beemer Park, the Hamilton Encampment Support Network, which is a group that works with people homeless and who are in tents. They were trying to show their support because the police were investigating into the park, and things escalated to the point where violence was conducted, let's say, in the park. And I'm being polite about that. The police ended up coming in, escalating to violence. So they broke up the protest. People are reporting to have been hurt, bruised, punched. One person is accusing an officer of putting their knee on their neck to the point where they couldn't breathe. Popular community organizer Sarah Drama was arrested surprisingly by the police, and then things escalated down to a police station where protesters moved to protest the police action there, to which things escalated there, and 3 people were arrested there as well, but later released. And again, I'm not going to get into the who's right and who's wrong bit here, because this thing has been escalated up to the SIU level. So I'm trusting that the process will unveil exactly what happened, a timeline of events, and those things. So that's not what I want to get into. My interest in this whole story is the fact that there is a homeless encampment in J.C. Beemer Park, and just what's the fact that it's there, and that everybody says it's treated as more of a nuisance. Then this is a symptom of a much larger issue, and that issue is the fact that housing is becoming wildly unaffordable to the lower income rung of society. These people are living in the encampment not because it's a lovely weekend away and a fun excursion to do. It's they literally have nowhere else to go, and this is the only place that they can go. The shelter system isn't equipped to handle them. There's clearly not enough community funded social housing to house them safely and appropriately, and this is what they're left to. And the response is, okay, we'll send in the cops to break it up, which is, I'm going to say, it's a wild overuse of resources, and it's at best it's a Band-Aid solution to a bigger, deeper problem in Hamilton, and I'm going to argue the 905 at large.
Well, yeah, we saw earlier this year in Toronto similar police clearing events becoming violent, major arrests, and I mean, I guess it comes down to that thing of there are people who, regardless of any evidence to the contrary, will refuse to believe that people choosing to live in tents in a park are not there somehow by choice or because they're lazy or whatever. And my understanding is that at the start of COVID, there was perhaps somewhat of a relaxation on or rules, or simply things took care of themselves, and people who might have previously gone to hostels or community shelters simply said, "Not on your life, mate," and found other places to go. And now the city and the police feel they have to clean up the mess, and rather than having an ounce of humanity in the process and asking if maybe there are better ways of dealing with this problem than forcible evictions, have just done the traditional thing, which is to simply throw people out without asking about the next step in the process of where are they supposed to go. Are the places where they're supposed to go safe? Do they even exist? And so on and so forth. I mean, certainly, the Hamilton Council seems to play a role in this. They play a role as members of, some of them as members of the Police Services Board, and they play a role of it in terms of this is city property that people are being evicted from. When we think back in history to the Great Depression, I don't know enough about the history of Hamilton to say if people lived in parks during the Great Depression, but I know they did in places like New York, where famously, Central Park had thousands of people living in it.
They had Hooverville.
Yeah,
look it up.
And we don't look back now and go, well, those idle buggers. They, if they just worked a little bit harder, they wouldn't have had to live in those parks. No, we have huge sympathy for people living through one of the great calamities of the 20th century. This is one of the great calamities of the 21st century, both COVID and the wider issue of poverty and chronic shortage of affordable, not just affordable housing, but subsidized and low income housing.
Well, I mean that's the trick is the. I mean, on the weekend, I caught one of this, and I tweeted a bit of a Twitter thread / rant. And my basic argument was that these people aren't there because of choice. There's a clear lack of social housing in Hamilton for people to take advantage of. And I'm not talking the shelter system, because that is woefully broken. It's not meant to handle this situation. What's the real problem is, and where you get is there's a clear disconnect between leadership in Hamilton and the grassroots, the people who are on the ground dealing with the shit every day. And what I meant, and what I mean by leadership, I don't mean just city council. I mean everything: police, business, all the upper echelons of Hamilton society there's a real disconnect there between what's going on the ground. And it's this, the assumption, well, they're there by choice. They need to go because they're dirty and they use drugs and they're filthy and they're breaking the law. Therefore they have to go. It's a question of, well, where do they go? Because it's not that you say, oh, go back to your homes. They have no homes. That the tent that you kicked out of the park was their home. So there's that. Secondly, if the city actually wants to remove these people from the streets, from the parks, from public places, they need to buy property, refurbish it, make it subsidized housing that's affordable and safe and with dignity for people families to live in and to recuperate and to get on their feet and to start building up that social mobility again. The arguments of that I see online against the encampments of, oh, they're lazy and they're drug users and they're dirty and it's crime ridden and all this. It's I look and say, so what, you just have no compassion for these people? Like you don't care about trying to fix the problem. You just, if that's the case, then all you're going to do is you're going to have more tent cities popping up around the city. You're going to get sending the cops again to break it up. You're going to have more violent clashes. That's the case. Yeah, they might be breaking the law, but that's the situation until city council steps in and realizes, well, we're the ones with the power. We've got to do this. We got to find a way to do it. And that subset, the people on the ground who are organizing, we've had them on this podcast. People like I Elect Hamilton, like Stop Sprawl Hammond, No Hate in the Hammer. These are not separate mobs of people. They're groups of people who are really all arguing for the same thing. They're all touching on the same issues, which is economic calamity for the Hamiltonians on the lower rungs of society. Those people are often racialized Canadians. They're new Canadians or marginalized Canadians or trans or other minority groups who are often on those periphery, and they're either hanging on by a thread or they're cast aside. And these groups the reason why they keep showing up is because they realize these issues are all interconnected. The Stop Sprawl Hammond people who were adamant against expanding the urban boundary, because we had them on, they were talking, well, we need to build up social housing in Hamilton. There's all these places that we're not using. We're not rezoning and redeveloping, encouraging developers redo this building or build a project here for people to live in with dignity. Well, this is the result of that. If you want to build a detached $1 million home that these people can't afford anyways, where are they going to go? The market isn't going to fix this on its own. You got to take action. You can't just say, "Oh, the market will provide housing." It's not, and if it does, it's not going to be affordable to these people. City Hall, get in with your fists up and fight and make this happen.
Yeah, we have. I don't like always comparing Canada to other countries in Europe, because it's kind of a sucky thing for someone with a non-Canadian accent to do. However, sometimes I just have to.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Europe in the post-war era built hundreds and millions of homes that are or were publicly owned by municipal governments, local governments, by the state, whatever. Or what it was called in Britain after the war was homes fit for heroes, and that many of the people who fought in the Second World War were not wealthy, or they were from working class and relatively poor backgrounds, people who had never owned a home and never expected to own one. The fact that there's less of a chronic shortage of affordable and subsidized housing in those countries is because the public sector provided for many decades. Now, they've now stopped providing to a significant degree, or things have been privatized or sold off or whatever. But here we've never had a proper systemic, targeted, large-scale attempt to even provide decent, affordable housing to everybody in society. So we have really paltry amounts of housing for people who are the most vulnerable because of health or illness or whatever reasons. It's kind of impossible. It's very difficult to get. We have reducing numbers of, right at the moment, we're all talking about affordable housing. Cooperative housing associations being bought up by developers and knocked down for very expensive seniors' homes. I can think of one in Burlington right now. I don't blame the people who live in the cooperative at all for doing what makes financial sense for them. But the fact is, cooperative, I can think of a number of co-op housing schemes, housing locations that have been lost through that same route in the last decade. And that, for anybody who doesn't know, cooperative housing offers a way to home ownership that is according to your means to pay. It's really a way of getting people into a housing market that has a lot to recommend it.
Well, that's the thing though, is that I think COVID or this pandemic has really shone a magnifying glass on all these problems that were already there. These aren't new problems, but the pandemic forced a huge magnifying glass on all this, and it just brought it all up to the surface. And all these problems are under such pressure, even prior to the pandemic, in the good old years, the golden times when the money was rolling. We realized, like, all of a sudden we discovered it's all built on a house of cards, and all this stuff comes crashing down. We're now stuck dealing with it. And my frustration is we're trying to use old 20th century tactics to fix what's turning out to be a 21st century problem. Right? I'm going to say 21st century opportunity. I think I'd rather use that instead of a problem, because I think there's an opportunity here to really build back an economy that's better, more equal, and more fair for people to get around. And a lot of that is providing safe, affordable housing that is dignified and something that people can be proud to live in. And it's clear in Hamilton from this weekend that need is not going away anytime soon. And I think the message, I'll leave it at this because I want to get on to the next topic. If you're a city councilor or somebody of influence in Hamilton and you saw what happened on this weekend and your first reaction is the police didn't hit hard enough, you're going to be on the wrong side of history, my friend. I'm hoping if you're a city councilor or somebody who has power in the city, you looked at it and you said, we need to change this. This is just going to keep happening. What happened is not a solution. It's not a warning. It's not a detriment. It's going to keep coming back, and it's going to keep coming back harder and more violent and more. And I'm worried it escalates into a deadly confrontation for either police or for citizens. And I don't want to see that ever happen at all. But I'm worried that ignoring it or just doing the same old tired story of, they're lazy bums and drug addicts and criminals and they get what they deserve. No, we need to change it, and we need to change it now.
Well, I think that leads perfectly into our next subject, actually, which is the subject, I think, in a lot of ways of the level of political courage that leaders, provincial leaders, and perhaps our municipal leaders will show in the next year as we run up to really important elections. So let's take a short break and then start talking about that when we get back. Welcome back. And so for our second story today, we noticed that there were two announcements from the leaders of of two of the opposition parties. I shouldn't say the main ones, because perhaps only one of them can really claim to be main right at this second.
By technical definitions, yes.
But there were two significant announcements from the leader of the NDP, Andrea Horwath, and from Stephen Del Duca, the leader of the Ontario Liberals. To summarise, Andrea Horwath announced that the NDP would be making a commitment to bring in a $20 minimum wage if they're elected into government next year, which is $5 more than the 15 that the PC's recently introduced. And Stephen Del Duca made an announcement that if elected, they would abolish the ministerial zoning orders, the MZOs, that have existed for a long time, but which have been used in an entirely new way, an unintended way, by the PC government since 2018. So, well, Joel, what do you make of those two announcements?
Meh. The minimum wage idea I like, but it's kind of like, and part of my pun, it's kind of like a day late and a buck short. I'm not surprised that the NDP want to raise the minimum wage to $20. They should. I applaud them for putting on their platform saying that they will do it. That's great. I don't think the Liberals are not going to do that either. The Conservatives will. We know the Conservatives will not. It's not a shaking, earth-shattering policy announcement. The MZO announcement is, I think, a little bit more. It's a little bit more earth-shattering, but I don't think anyone's going to care about it. Because I think the MZO one is one that is going to have a lot. If you're a policy wonk, it's going to have a huge impact in terms of the inner workings of government and the powers that government can use to drive development in this province. And over the long term, that has far more, I think, a bigger ramification for government. But again, it's really something that only policy wonks and will really care about. And I think it landed with a thud, or a dud, I should say, in the news cycle. I would say this in terms of the $20 minimum wage. Stephen Del Duca has promised that he would bring back the basic income pilot program. and that they would also raise the minimum wage. So, I mean, this is not a. Coming off our previous story, this is very I find it very unsatisfactory, and it's very old school politics. It's just let's throw some money, let's try and get it some tinker around the edges, but let's not actually address the core issues of the problems that are affecting the 905 and Ontario at large. I'm going to go on a rant here, so bear with me, folks. But again, it's my podcast. I can do what I want. I looked at like the last federal election, pissed me off because we're coming out of a pandemic, a global pandemic, where all the faults of society were just shown bare. The economic inequality, the wage inequality, the job insecurity that exists, the dissatisfaction with the way things are by a good number of people was just laid bare for a lot of people. The fact that, these frontline workers and the minimum wage workers that we turn out, we're so dependent on them to run the economy. We're back to trying to find ways. We're trying to find ways to treat them like dirt. And it's like, come on, we're going to go back to this old tired argument. I thought the Liberals, when they called the federal Liberals, when they called the last election, they're going to come in with some big program, they were going to bring in a basic income guarantee or something like that, something really big that, they said, we need the public buy-in on this. Is too big just to go because we think we need a mandate from the people to push it forward. And I said, okay, that would have been a responsible government thing to do. But instead, it was clearly just a power grab by Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. It paid off for them. We got back to the status quo. We're moving forward with that. I'm pissed off because I see provincially there's an opportunity for to change the dialogue on this and to really put forward the reality is times have changed with the pandemic, and we are still trying to we're still trying to solve the problems from 1995. It seems. We're not saying, okay, how do we address things like really address the housing crisis in this province, the socialized housing. We're going to give minimum wage. Great, sure, but we're not going to really addressing the core bits of inequality that we're here. And I want to see that from Andrea Horwath or Stephen Del Duca, say we need to do things differently. Times have changed.
Well, yeah. I mean, my feeling is that we're not going to get it from either of those two leaders, but I would love to be proved wrong by one of them. My feeling is that, well, it's not even a feeling. I know for a fact that the reason Stephen Del Duca is leader of the Ontario Liberals is because many members of the OLP felt that Kathleen Wynne was too left-wing and frightened off voters, and therefore a move to the right, is the right thing to do. My personal feeling is that's absolutely a misjudgment of what the last election was about, an absolutely misjudgment of the public appetite for the policies that the Wynne government was implementing. I think there was fatigue at the Liberals, and there was a huge dose of just toxic nastiness directed at Kathleen Wynne personally, because she was a woman and because she was a lesbian and all those other things. Mm-hmm. And, if you think I'm making that up, I saw it with my own eyes on the doorsteps, things that were said, day in, day out to volunteers that I've never seen in an election before. So Del Duca was a move to a right. I don't see him being the kind of guy who's going to set the world alight with radical policies. I don't think that's really his style or the style that he was chosen leader to put on the table.
No.
Andrea Horwath, she's such an interesting person in some ways. I mean, she's survived maybe 2 elections now by the skin of her teeth. I mean, she survived the first one where she took the NDP so far to the right that they ended up on the right of the Liberals, and completely, there was the election where the Liberals went left and the NDP went right, and the Liberals won a majority. She won last time basically because the Liberals collapsed. I mean, the NDP did well, so that brought another election.
That was interesting. Like, the Liberals literally gave up. And the week before the election date, Kathleen went and said, okay, I give up. We're not going to win. That's it. And what gets me is the NDP coming out and saying, oh my God, Kathleen Wynne ruined the election for us. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Your major opponent, the governing party, basically says, I quit. I give up. I'm handing in the towel, in the last leg of the race. And you're saying, oh, it's her fault you couldn't carry it past the finish line? I'm sorry.
You still couldn't even hold the PCs to a minority.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Liberals,
Andrea,
we're going home.
Well, that's
we're going
thing.
home. We're going to take our 8 seats.
You cannot convince anyone else to sign up, and that's what I get is the NDP coming out. Oh, she sabotaged it first. Like, no, you own it. You fucking suck. You dropped the ball. You choked. Like
I'm gonna get letters, Joel.
Good, and I hope I will write back personally with what I think, because if you're the NDP, face facts. Last election, you fucking choked big time. Mark my words. And what I'm pissed off at is they didn't learn. They're clearly not learning the lesson. They're not going big and coming in and saying, let's change the script. Doug Ford I think Doug Ford has shot himself in the foot so many times this last year with COVID. He was everything he's handed. They've mucked it up. I can't think of a single unabashed win that the Conservatives have had in their entire, even before COVID, in their entire term as government. They have not had a single win that they can unequivocally say, yeah, that's a win. They won over the public. They got a good policy through. They're the Charlie Brown of political parties. They fucked it up. They just fucked it up. And I'm like, but then I look at the NDP and the Liberals, and I'm like, people are itching for change. People know things have changed. We are not going back to a before COVID era. The idea like, oh, the free market's going to fix the free market can't even put dish soap on the supermarket shelves right now. And so don't give me this, oh, the free market's going to solve all of our problems. Government needs to step in and use its vast powers to start solving these issues. And those issues being housing affordability and ensuring that the lowest rung of the society, the people that it turns out we are also dependent on to make this thing run, this thing that we call society, that they're looked after. And we need to start investing back into people big time. We need to start investing properly back into healthcare, getting nurses and workers into long-term care homes and making sure that they are places that for dignity, because there's a lot of us heading for those homes in the next few years. Getting our hospitals spotless and best in the world, and stop trying to find ways to hack and slash that budget. Stop picking fights with teachers and getting our education system working so that we have people who are going to solve the future problems and not just be, let's just put people who can put bolts in the spoke of the wheel on the assembly line. We need people who are going to start thinking of better solutions to the problems that we're going to face. We need to start investing in people. And I'm not seeing a lot of that from any political party right now at Queen's Park. And time's running out for them to start winning people over.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, I think you're right. Investment in people, definitely. However, I also think it's the right time to start changing the ways we think about making those investments. I mean, writing a check and throwing them at entity X or Y that has existed for 100 years or 50 years or whatever. It's like, no, let's not just talk about the minimum wage. Let's talk about what it takes to create a living wage. Mm-hmm. And the minimum wage, anybody who knows anything significant about minimum wages knows that it's basically a very blunt instrument. It is it's not it's not a tool necessarily for fixing the entire poverty problem. Why can't we talk about fixing the entire poverty thing? Why do we accept that this exists? We shouldn't accept that it is normal for a percentage of society to live on the streets or to live in poverty. And I think my gut feeling is that we are in an age where people are willing to take really bold policies. And the thing is that they're willing to take those bold policies either on the left or on the right. So, why are we seeing people like Rob Ford, Doug Ford, Donald Trump, or any number of other kind of right-wing demagogues prospering? Because I think people are sick with the kind of moderate, going nowhere form of politics that through my life was typified before I came to Canada by Tony Blair, that kind of centrism, what he called the third way between the left and the right, which basically meant, Toryism with a nice face, with a nicer face stuck on it. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's the mood of the country now. There are people who hate everything about everything, who just believe in some kind of libertarian whatever.
Right.
But they're a fairly small percentage, although they seem to get far more attention than their numbers warrant. On the other side, I think people are much more willing to talk about basic incomes, a fundamental new deal with First Nations, maybe the public sector, the municipalities, whatever, getting into building large-scale housing projects to just deal root and branch with the affordability crisis.
I don't even think we've talked numerous times about the housing affordability crisis on this podcast. And I invite any of our listeners to go take a deep dive into our back catalog. If you haven't heard some of those episodes, check out the episodes with like Mike Moffat and Alyssa Brierley to start. We need to. I don't think we need to invest a ton of money necessarily either. Like we're not talking like a Marshall Plan level of investment. I would argue we already have the tools. Change the bylaws so that when a company comes in and says they want to build a condo tower or a new development or whatever, make it so that 10% of the units sold in that project or the nearest denomination to that 10% is given over to a public housing corporation. We have, in the province of Ontario, there's all these regional or municipal housing corporations. At least there should be. If there's not, then I would urge as the province, I would use my powers to say, make one or get it organized and just have it. 10% of every new housing project, every bit that no matter what, no matter the size, whether it's a single detached home neighborhood or if it's a condo tower or if it's a townhouse complex, whatever the case may be, 10% of the units built has to be given over to the public housing corporation. And I know this is radical for someone because it's, you're giving free housing to people. I'm like, kind of, yeah. I think we're at that point now where... Well,
in theory, those kind of deals are already done. It's that they're not really done.
The
community benefits is a phrase that many people will have heard of.
It's negotiated. It's come into it's been muddied down so that it kind of turns into a backroom deal between the developer and the city, and it becomes part of the negotiation package. Whereas if it's...
Well, community benefits, guess what? Community benefits also get messed up, as Lisa Kearns was saying last week. They get messed up by things being appealed to LPAT. So community benefits are meant to be part of any major development. And the phrase, the hint, the clues in the question or the answers in the community benefits for the community. That can be anything. What it often is a sum of money for the community that goes straight to the city, into the city coffers. Now there are things, sometimes it will be electric vehicle charging stations, sometimes it will be bike stands, it will be, sometimes it will be a green roof. These are the kind of things that get tacked on. They tend not to be that earth-shattering when you're talking about the sheer scale of what is being built and the money that the developer will make.
But see, that's where I don't think you need these community benefits because it's meant to we're going down the road of development again, and I don't really want to, but this is one of the examples of if the political leadership, the opposition parties, if they really want to change the narrative and say we're going to change the way we do things, this is a perfect example of you don't have to put out money, but you are going to piss off a lot of developers on this, and they're going to cry havoc and that, oh my God, you're going to cripple all of us. And I'm kind of bullshit on it right now. If you said no, there's no community benefits, that's taken off the table, because if the provincial government says no, we're just going to legislate, we're going to build more charging stations. You can just say no. The charging stations aren't perks and benefits anymore. They're now a necessity. Same as you say you want to build wherever you build 10%, or find a comparable 5% might be a more reasonable number. Whatever the case may be, there are people who would know the details far better than I. But if you say something like a percentage of every unit of the total units in a project built have to go to public housing. You say no, you're going to build. When you build new gas stations, say no, they are going to be charging stations now. We just say this is how we are going to build the province, and it's an easy way to say, oh yeah, we can provide the housing for people to move in, and we don't get these ghettos. You don't get these neighborhoods that businesses don't want to move into shops. It's hard to get loans to open up a business in them. It's because they're already in where everybody else lives. And it's a great idea, and it happens around the world. It happens, I believe, in some places in Canada. There's already something called inclusionary zoning. The trick is making affordable units affordable in perpetuity, and not just affordable for the first couple of weeks before someone flips them. Right. It should, to my mind, it should be a rental accommodation and not for purchase. I'll tell you the experience in London is that the developers started by building separate staircases for the people living in the cheap units, so that they wouldn't mix with the rich people who are paying for the fancy units, which just makes my skin crawl. But you just have to hope that the world won't tolerate things like that. However, I think there's been examples again around the world of the importance of not putting all one sector of society in one place has all kinds of benefits for a community. Mixing your professionals with your more blue collar workers, with your office workers, has all kinds of benefits. This idea that everybody lives in their own street and never mixes with the people from elsewhere is all kinds of messed up. Mm-hmm. So I think there are huge benefits with that kind of approach. And getting back to Horvath and Del Duca, I just don't see that kind of from either of them. And I hope I'm proved wrong, but I don't see it. You know what they could do? The invitation is out there. If they want to come on this podcast and show us the bold vision of Ontario they have, the invitation is out there. I'd love to have them come on and tell it straight to our faces, like this is what prove us wrong, that there's what they think is needed. Because right now it just looks like they're nitpicking at Doug Ford's leftovers, and it's sad and pathetic. I want to see boldness.
Well, it's business as usual, certainly. And I know why politicians often think they have to play safe, but one of those two leaders has to kind of reduce the other one to even more rubble than one of them is already in. Mm-hmm. If they want to become premier of this province. Unfortunately, that's the electoral system we have. I think it's all kinds of wrong, but there we go. That's the one this election is going to be fought under. They need to do something that makes a big impact. I'm not being very inspired so far, but we shall see. Anyway, I think we're up on our limit by the look of it. So we should probably wrap it up for this week. And if you have different opinions, or if you have questions or thoughts about what we've discussed today, particularly with perhaps the run up to next year's provincial election and what the opposition parties should be recommending, what they should be putting in their platforms, please do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you, and we could feature that on a future episode. Until then, thanks very much for listening, and we'll speak to you next time.
That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns, or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We'd love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.
Looking to make the most out of this life and optimize your personal wellness? Then check out the Natural Man Podcast. Join me, host Mike C., as we explore all areas of human wellness, physical, mental, and emotional. Learn strategies to optimize your own well-being and be in the driver's seat of your own health. Remember, your doctor works for you. Learn biohacks, neurohacks, ways to improve sleep, and ways to optimize your body and your mind. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, the Fountain app, and at naturalmanpodcast.com.